right, here we are live again. Perfect. Looks like everything is working okay. Someday I'll get this all right. It also occurred to me I should probably have like a stream starting soon. Slide. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Welcome back. It is Tuesday, March 24th. My name is Megan, and this is Disturbingly Interesting. It's a show where we talk about all things that are strange and unusual, probably a little questionable, but always disturbing. And this is actually day 5 of my little challenge I set up for myself to do this daily, to try to get a handle on some of this and try to figure out what it is that I'm doing. And Friday is the last day of this challenge, which I'm kind of looking forward to, because while I do like doing this, every day is a little tough. I do work a full-time job, and I am calling this the Disturbingly lunch hour because this is on my lunch hour from work. And I just had a meeting that ran pretty much right up until noon. So it'll be nice. Friday's going to come around. Will be our last one then we'll get to some regularly scheduled programming. I'm going to try a few things out this episode to see how it goes, see how it works a little bit different. One, you'll probably notice if you watch the other ones, I'm not doing the background. So, or not the background, the overlay. And then I'm doing something a little different with the slides. So hopefully it all works out. Anyway, I'm excited for today. This is going to be a good one. So I want you to grab your passports and a snack because we are going on a road trip. We are going to take a tour of the 7 most dangerous places on Earth that people still visit. The first 3 you actually can go visit, and the last 4 are completely off limits. But of course, that does not stop people from going to visit them anyway. So let's start with our first one. So we are starting in Japan, at the base of Mount Fuji at Aokigahara Forest. And I probably said that wrong. I tried it a couple times, but that is in Japan. It is a super dense forest, and it has grown over a hardened lava flow. And between exposure, or like the exposed root systems and the uneven underground lava flow and the super dense canopy, the atmosphere is, or can be, I should say, pretty dark and oppressive. And because of that thick canopy and the denseness of those trees, there is very little wind and very little noise, very little outside noise that carries through. So pretty creepy, if you could about imagine. And for generations, locals have told stories of monsters and demons and yurei, which is a vengeful ghost that inhabits the forest. And in Japanese belief, those who die violently, tragically, or without proper rites may become a yurei, which is tied to the place of death and driven by unresolved emotions. So, wait a minute. Violent, tragic deaths? Megan, what are you talking about? Well, there's a legend that says that during the times of famine, in order to help alleviate some of the burden on families, they would abandon their elderly or infirmed relatives in the forest to die, which is not very cool, but, you know, 'tis what it is. Slide 2. So here we are. By the late 20th century, the forest had become known as the self-delete forest. I know content creation, there's certain things you can't say, but so it's become known as the self-delete forest, and Japanese officials have stated that there are around 200 attempts a year in order to try to help officials have increased interventions in the forest, stuff like patrols and drones, things they can do to help locate people before they do anything. Then they also have signs at the beginning of the trailheads that urge people to reconsider before they go. So this is bringing us to our next stop. Stop number 2 on our trip is going to take us to the middle of the desert of Turkmenistan, to the Darvaza crater, also known as the Door to Hell. So in the 1970s, geologists drilled in this spot, and they were searching for gas and oil. But an underground natural gas chamber, it created this sinkhole. It opened up and it collapsed all the ground above it, and it created this massive crater. So they were worried that the natural gas that was spewing out of this crater would poison the nearby livestock and the villages. So they ignited it, hoping to burn off all of those extra fumes and those extra gas. They expected it to burn for a couple of days, maybe a week. But because the gas reserve is so large, it is still burning, and it has been feeding the flames for over 50 years now, and they are unable to extinguish, which is craziness. So the crater itself, it is 60 to 70 meters wide, 20 to 30 meters deep, and at night, the glow is visible from across the desert. And I can about imagine that that looks really cool in the evening. So locals, they started calling it the door to hell because, I mean, look at it. You can visit this crater and you can actually walk right up to the edge of it like an idiot if you want to. I did not take the time to see how many people have died doing this because, again, that's not what these little episodes are for. But I would be surprised to see how many injuries they've had with people just trying to get up as close as they can to it. I feel like we should have that music, Dumb Ways to Die. That would be a dumb way to die. So our third stop on this tour is over to the Ukraine. And in 1986, we are going to Chernobyl, specifically the exclusion zone. So Chernobyl, it was a nuclear power plant just outside the city of Pripyat in the Ukraine. And in late April of 1986, Reactor 4 exploded during a safety test. It was not a meltdown. I think a lot of people think that this was a nuclear meltdown. It was an explosion of that reactor core. And the blast, it released these massive amounts of radiation into the air, coincidentally, into the surrounding area as well. But the problem was nobody really grasped the gravity of the situation at the time. So after this happened, firefighters, they ran in to try to obviously save people and to help, but they didn't have any protection. They didn't have any of the right, they didn't have hazmat suits. They didn't have the things that they need. And, they would say stuff like the air tasted like metal, and it was not a good thing. And within hours, they were suffering from radiation sickness, things like nausea, their skin turning red, skin blistering, organs failing, and really people just breaking down. The firefighters and the people that were there kind of at ground zero, it was fairly quick. But I'd heard a story that when all the firefighters came in, they had stripped them down, took all of their clothes off, and because their clothes were so radioactive, they threw them in the basement of the hospital, and they are still there to this day, and they are still pumping out loads of radiation. But that hospital is in the city of Pripyat, which is abandoned, and it was fully abandoned almost overnight. It looks like people really just got up and left, which I guess is what they did. But there's, dinner plates are still on the table. There's food. There was food everywhere. There was toys in the schools. There was like children's drawings and stuff everywhere. And it is one of the eeriest things that you can see. You can visit the exclusion zone. They do have tours and stuff, guided tours that go through. But the tours, obviously, they take you into appropriate areas, and then they measure the amount of radiation that you're exposed to, and so you can only stay there for so long. I watched of course people go there. They're not supposed to. And I watched a YouTube video, like an urban explorer, that him and a couple of his friends essentially snuck into Pripyat and slept overnight in one of the apartments and was just kind of exploring around and checking stuff out, which really, I think is kind of cool because it's nice to be able to see stuff like this from a different perspective. However, there is a water reservoir in the city that these people drank out of. Like, in all fairness, I'm not a scientist, but the radiation levels are still there. Like, they're still very high. And this group of people was under the impression, or is under the impression, that the radiation levels are not harmful at all, and that it's kind of just like a government cover-up, which, you know me, I love a good conspiracy theory, but I'm not gonna drink the water. I don't know. Either you gotta draw a line somewhere, and I'm not drinking that water. Mm-mm. Probably wouldn't drink it anyway, even if it was just like a normal abandoned city that wasn't full of radiation. I still wouldn't drink the water, but I definitely am not going to drink it from a reservoir in Pripyat. So the next stop 4 on our tour, is to the coast of Brazil. And I bet you're happy. You're excited to be in Brazil. Don't be. This is horrifying, because what you're looking at is Snake Island. It is just off the coast of Brazil. It is completely off limits to the public, and it's controlled by the Brazilian government. Why? Why does that happen? It's because it is one of the most snake-infested places on Earth, and it's not just a normal snake. The snake that infests this place is called a golden lancehead viper. It is one of the most venomous snakes in the world. How did they come here? How did they get to overrun this island? About 11,000 years ago, the lancehead was trapped on the island due to rising sea levels. Obviously, the island was part of Brazil at one point, but because of the rising sea levels, the viper got trapped there. And because there's no natural predators and plenty of prey, they thrived and they exploded in population. They can only estimate how many snakes are on the island, but it's a lot. Like, it is a lot. There are thousands and thousands of snakes on this island. And in some areas, they estimate that there are 3 snakes per square meter. So every square meter you step foot, there is potentially 3 golden lancehead vipers next to you. Why is that important? Because the venom from these vipers it's horrible. It's causes tissue death, internal bleeding, and organ failure, and really it's a horrific way to die. I can't remember the name of that type of venom, but it's immediate. It's very, very potent. There is a story about a lighthouse keeper and his family that lived on the island, and one night people from the mainland or whatever had noticed that the light wasn't on, or that it wasn't operating like it normally does. So they started to get worried, and they went out to check on the family. When they got there and they managed to make their way through without getting bit by anything, they made it to the lighthouse, and they found the family, and they appeared to be sleeping, like they were all sleeping in their bed, but they were all dead because they had all been bitten sometime throughout the night by snakes. And that's how fast it worked, is they were all still in bed when they passed away. So that's horrifying. I'm not a big snake fan to begin with, but no, that's just awful. All right, so we are going to move on we're heading from Brazil, and we're trucking on over to Europe, to Italy. We're off to the coast of Venice, to Poveglia Island. Poveglia Island is a pretty unique place. It's a small island. It's completely abandoned, and its history is dark. It is dark. Initially, because of its location, obviously it was very favorable for trade and for trade routes. So there has been tons of war and conflict over the centuries just to own it, right? Just to own this island because of where it's located. In addition to that, during the plague era, this island was used as a quarantine zone. So there were thousands of people that were sent to Poveglia Island that were all infected. And if they weren't infected at the time, they were when they got there with the bubonic plague. And obviously with that many people there, tons of people dying. So they had mass graves everywhere. And then mass grave fire pits where they would burn a bunch of bodies. So there's just these layers of ashes and bones. And it's thought to just really absorb into the ground there just because of how awful that was. Later, probably I believe, if I remember correctly, in the 1950s, it became a mental asylum. So they turned it into a mental asylum, and then, like most mental asylums of the day, patients were treated pretty terribly, and they were experimented on. And the story says that the doctor that performed these experiments and the doctor that kind of ran the place, he was, after being there for a while, he started to get pretty creeped out. Like, he was seeing shadows, he was hearing voices, and he was claiming that he would see patients that had died, but he was still seeing them walk around. Eventually, he climbs to the top of the tower and jumps. So today, Poveglia is known as probably one of the most haunted places in the world, obviously because of its history, and then also the secrecy around it, because it is off limits to the public. I believe that it is privately owned now, but even the private owners have everything off limits to the public. You can't go there. And even locals like fishermen, they won't even fish nearby there. The fishermen say that they can hear screams coming from the island. And again, remember, it's completely unoccupied. So they can hear screams coming from the island. They can hear these phantom bells ringing. And then, this part creeped me out. They will even claim that when they lean over the boat to look, when they get to a certain distance from the island and they lean over the boat and look in the water, they can see skeletal faces floating just below the surface, which is horrifying. I would go, though, to be honest. I would go to Poveglia. I think it would be very interesting to see. I can't remember. I think Ghost Adventures went there one time. I can't remember Zach Baggins running around there doing something, but I do think that would be really cool to go to that island just to see it. So we are going to move on to our sixth stop of the tour. This is going kind of fast. It's kind of good. I think I'm talking super fast too, but we're going to chill because stop number 6 is really, really cool. So we are going to somewhere a little bit different, to North Sentinel Island. And we're not actually going there because we can't, but North Sentinel Island is located in the Indian Ocean. It is home to the Sentinelese tribe, which is one of the last uncontacted tribes in the world, which is so crazy. Totally cut off, uncontacted tribes. They've lived there for thousands of years, and the Indian government has made it illegal for anyone to go there. And not just for their safety, but for yours as well. Because they don't want you there. They're not super friendly. And there have been multiple occasions where even helicopters flying by overhead, the Sentinelese, they will shoot at the helicopters with arrows. Any boat that gets too close usually gets attacked as well. It's pretty clear they don't want you there. They don't want what you're selling. Does that stop people from going? No. 2018, of course, Of course, we had someone that thought they were an exception to the rule. In 2018, 26-year-old missionary John Allen Chow, or Show, it's C-H-A-W, went to the island. Anyway, John Allen went to the island. He believed he was special, that he was the one that was meant to make contact with this uncontacted tribe and convert them to Christianity. He believed that the island, their home, was Satan's last stronghold, which maybe don't lead with that while you're visiting somebody's home. He tried a few times to go. On his first attempt, as he approached the island, they fired arrows at him. Because again, they don't want you there. He actually tried a few more. If that wasn't enough, he tried a few more times. And every time he went, they made it clear they didn't want his pamphlet, right? They're not interested. And but he was going to do it. He was on a mission. So he tried one last final time. You want to take a guess what happened? He died. They killed him. The audacity of him, not them. I think they made it pretty clear. Like, get off my lawn. And he just kept coming. Like, I don't want to make light of somebody passing away, but like, come on. They said no. Leave. Okay, so we're leaving there, and we are on our way to our final stop, which I'm super excited because we're heading to Nevada, to Area 51. Now, I don't think I need to tell you much about Area 51, but I'm gonna because I want to. So Area 51, it's a highly classified U.S. military base. It's located in the Nevada desert near Groom Lake, and it is called Area 51 because the topographical map, is sectioned off into areas. So there is an Area 52, there's an Area 50, this just happens to be Area 51. And officially, this military base is used for aircraft testing and advanced military technology, like the single-engine spy plane or the SR-71 Blackbird, which is super cool. All the iterations of the stealth fighter planes through here as well. But that's not what people focus on. They're focusing on aliens, baby. So people claim that that Area 51 is more than just testing of aircraft, that it has a deep involvement with aliens and UFOs. And there are claims from people like Bob Lazar, who used to work there, and he claimed that he himself helped reverse engineer non-human technology. So after he came forward, a lot of what he said, or a lot of his credentials, became very difficult to verify. So some of the stuff that he said, people weren't able to, match it with the truth. His background was a little unclear, but nonetheless sparked the mass hysteria about Area 51. And so people want to go and find out because, of course, we can't. They said we can't, so we want to. The security around Area 51 is one of the strictest for any military base. So it's surrounded by warning signs, armed patrol, and surveillance. If you get too close, you will be stopped, and they are very clear about their ability to use deadly force. But people don't care, and they still try to test the limits. And as your self-appointed unofficial tour guide, I should probably tell you to not do that. If some place is off limits and they say don't go there, then don't go there. But just for funsies, would you go there? I don't know. I would go to the area. Like, I would take my picture with the sign. I think there's the famous sign that you can stand by and stand in front of, but like the minute you go past, like the white trucks are on their way down and people are coming. I would do that. I'm not, I don't know, I'm too fragile for prison. I'm not going in there, but I do think it is pretty cool. So that was our last stop for this trip. And we're 25 minutes into it. So again, I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's time and lunch hour. But I am curious, out of the ones that we talked to, is there one that you would actually visit if you could? Like, which one would make the top of your list that you would visit if you could? For me, it would be Chernobyl. If I could go to Chernobyl, I think that would be so cool. Supposedly, it is very, very haunted, which I wouldn't be surprised if it was. I also have recently learned about, I don't know how, I didn't know this. I recently learned about it has kind of its own Mothman, almost, except it's the Blackbird of Chernobyl. And apparently, leading up to the event and then for times afterwards, like people kept seeing this blackbird and that all of these crazy things would happen. So I am looking a little bit more into that because I think that would be a cool story. But I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. Which one would you go to if you could? That is our video for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. I would greatly appreciate it. I am trying my best to get a little more comfortable doing this as we go along. If you want to hear about a particular topic and haven't covered it yet, make sure you let me know in the comments. I'd be more than happy to do that. And we've got a couple days left. So I'll see you back here tomorrow at 12 p.m. Central Time for another